Hi everyone, I am, as always, Raphael. I'm a software engineer myself, and I moved out of Germany a couple of years ago. And what I discovered after leaving is something that most developers only notice once it's already slowing them down. There's a reason why more and more developers move first and build second. It has less to do with taxes and far more to do with what actually happens once you try to start something in Germany. In this video, we'll break down the 5 things that most developers overlook, and you can see for yourself whether this path makes any sense for you. Some of these points only become visible once you step outside of the system. Reason number 1, the lovely paperwork. So you might say there's paperwork in every country, it's the same everywhere, isn't it? That is not really the truth, because some countries are worse than other countries, specifically for software developers for digital businesses. Germany's registration process basically runs on 19th century rules. On the one hand, it's slow and bureaucratic and packed with steps that feel completely pointless today. If you want to create a limited company, a GmbH, then it can only be formed by going to a notary. You're basically paying them way too much money for what they're doing, and then you have to repeat these expensive steps anytime you want to change something. Like if you want to add capital to the company, if you want to add a partner, you have to do it again. It's going to cost a lot of money. But the really scary part is this constant fear of getting hit with a cease and desist letter. It's called Abmahnung in German. It's typically something because something is slightly off on your website. We're talking about things like an impressum imprint, the cookie banner, the privacy details, all sorts of rules that might feel harmless to you. It is basically impossible for a startup, a 1 or 2 person business, any small company, to be 100% legally compliant. Your only hope is that nobody notices for a while and that they won't come after you. But the reality is there's a lot of predatory lawyers out there who use automation to basically try and fine you and hit you with these fancy letters for every small mistake that you make. Then if you're not careful, you have thousands of euros in fines and lawyer fees that you have to pay, even if your company is not even making any money yet. If there's no revenue, you still have to pay all this stuff. On top of that, typically it takes many weeks to start a new business until it's really operational, instead of much lower time frames. Sometimes it's like a 1 day or a few days formation in other European countries, even in the EU.
But Raphael, I read online that it only takes 1 week to start a business in Germany.
Yeah. So I'm not surprised that you've read this number. I've seen this myself a couple of times in German PR material. Of course, they want to make it look shiny, and sometimes you will even find it in country rankings where they say, okay, you can found a company in Germany in 1 week. I would say this number is not accurate. And the reason is very simple. A company means you need a tax ID, you need a working bank account, not just a notary appointment. All of this typically takes a couple of weeks in Germany for a limited company to be finished, and before that, your business is basically not really usable. So the bottom line is that your business basically already loses momentum even before it really starts. Your motivation might drop significantly in the first few weeks. And if you're wondering how much this bureaucracy is really costing you personally, we can absolutely break it down in a quick call. You'll find the link down below in the description. Reason number 2, the German compliance eats your most valuable resources, time. At least 10 to 15 hours per month in paperwork and compliance for a minimum size company, like a one-man show. If you translate this into money, we assume 150 euros hourly rate. This means you easily spend like 1,500 to 2,300 euros per month just in compliance costs every month. That's huge. The stress and the mental load from constant administrative tasks really can drag you down. Every letter from the tax office becomes an anxiety trigger. As we already talked about, there's a risk of fines, but it's also for accounting mistakes. If you make any mistakes in deducting your recent travel expenses, for example, you can get a hefty back taxes assessment years later, because in that first year you booked your travel expenses wrong and then you deducted too much, so you owe more tax plus interest and sometimes even a fine on top of that. If you just ask your accountant or tax advisor to do it correctly for you, it's relatively costly. And there's still no guarantee that the tax office will not try and squeeze you for every last euro in a couple of years later. Be mindful they have up to 10 years to do this. It's not like they have a low amount of time. Because unfortunately, the government is not your friend in most cases. The tax office will often make things up. They will falsely accuse you of incorrect bookkeeping just to make you feel unconfident, and they will try to squeeze you like a lemon. Sometimes they audit you years later, and they interpret any small mistake in your documentation as an unallowed expense, and then they charge you back taxes with interest and sometimes a fine on top. The result is that you often either just pay that and consider it like an additional tax, or you have to go to court against the tax office. And then in court, they actually lose because they're not right. But first, you have to sue them, which can cost you a lot of money and time. It's personal pain, and definitely 100% it distracts you from your business. In reality, many people end up paying too much taxes in Germany because they get blackmailed by the tax office.
But Raphael, can't you just outsource these tasks to an accountant or tax advisor?
You can try and outsource these tasks to a tax advisor, an accountant, and similar, or maybe even to AI. But the problem is you have to prepare the material. You have to share the information with the advisor. For a startup, there tends to be many individual cases. So, in the end, the thing is they cannot just read your mind. You have to do a lot of stuff. And then on top of them, you still have to pay them their fees. So that is still costly in terms of both time and money in the end. Even if you're a small business, like a one-person business, it can easily cost you, I would say, around 18,000 to 27,000 per year, if not more, if you stay in Germany. Reason number 3. Let's just briefly talk about the actual amount of taxes you're paying. For developers, Germany quickly becomes a 50 to 70% tax environment. It starts with the income tax, which might not seem that high, but it can quickly go up to like 30, 40% and levels off at 45%. On top of that, there's an 18.6% pension tax. Then there's a solidarity charge. Then there's 8 to 9% church tax. There's like an 800 euros monthly health insurance bill. You have to give the tax office quarterly prepayments for income you haven't even earned yet as an entrepreneur, as a freelancer. You take 100% of the risk, but you keep only around 30 to 50% of the reward. At these rates, you really have to ask yourself if it makes any sense to be an entrepreneur or innovator in Germany at all. Reason number 4. Germany isn't really built for digital solopreneurs. The system is designed for employees, for traditional businesses, like a factory, not for remote-first developers. You end up paying into systems that you cannot really fully use, like the pension system or unemployment. Because the pension system, it's just an honest truth, it is likely to collapse because of demographics. The rules are mainly made for brick and mortar businesses, where you have to go somewhere in person, you have to do something in paper, or you just have to generally be in a specific place at a certain time for completely artificial reasons that make little sense in a digital age. Just think of the example of changing anything about your company, you have to go to the notary in person. Every experiment in the end becomes more paperwork instead of speed. The system works very much against how modern developers actually operate. Reason number 5, FOMO. Kind of, yeah. So you miss out on better opportunities somewhere else. Leaving early puts you in a faster and more supportive environment. Whether you look at Switzerland or Estonia or Portugal or even countries outside of Europe, many of them are more digital and more founder-friendly. They often have even more impressive tech communities than you will find in Berlin or in Munich. The knowledge exchange, the collaboration, the new opportunities will most likely be better. In the end, if you have a higher net income, you can invest more, you can scale faster, and you're going to have more freedom personally. Staying in Germany has a huge opportunity cost that you might easily underestimate in the long run. Just to give you a simple example for the case of a senior developer. In Germany, you might end up saving about 25K per year. In Switzerland, doing the same thing, you can easily save about 50K. This means over just 5 years, you're already losing 125,000 euros for kind of nothing. If you as a developer are leaving, You're not just escaping and trying to make it easy for yourself. You're choosing a better opportunity for yourself and your future.
But Raphael, surely Germany must be doing a few things right as well.
To be fair, Germany does have certain strengths. Institutions are strong, legally the country is stable, and the public infrastructure is quite okay. This creates a somewhat reliable environment. Even if often inefficient and unnecessarily expensive, Germany is at least predictable, which is worth something. High consumer protection, the social safety net, may give you as a founder a sense of security, which is worth something. Overall, there are real advantages, but they don't always outweigh the practical barriers that can hold you back as a modern developer and tech business. Now, if you're still in Germany and you felt yourself nodding along at any point in this video, that's a sign. Nobody says that you have to leave tomorrow, but maybe you should at least understand your options, your advantages somewhere else, and what a smarter setup could look like for you. Because once you remove the friction, the bureaucracy, and the unnecessary obstacles, developers unlock something really powerful: speed, clarity, and the freedom to actually build. If you want to talk through your situation, your goals, or your potential move, I'm happy to help. Book a conversation with me and I'll walk you through what makes sense in your case and what the smartest path forward could look like. You'll find a link below in the description.